The Crimson Keys. Elliot Grayson was a collector of oddities, a man who trawled estate sales and dusty antique shops for relics of forgotten lives. It was at a crumbling Victorian manor on the outskirts of town, amidst moth-eaten curtains and chipped porcelain, that he found the typewriter. A 1920s Royal, its black enamel chipped, keys yellowed like old teeth. The auctioneer, a gaunt woman with sunken eyes, barely glanced at it as she muttered, $10, take it or leave it. Elliot handed over the cash, drawn not by its condition but by the faint, metallic tang that clung to it, like blood dried in the crevices. Back in his cluttered apartment, he set the typewriter on his desk, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across its frame. He fed a sheet of paper into the roller, more out of curiosity than intent, and tapped a few keys. The clack-clack-clack was satisfyingly sharp, though the ribbon was faded, leaving ghostly imprints. He typed. The man walked alone. The machine jammed briefly, then sputtered, and to his surprise, a faint red tint bled into the letters. He frowned, inspecting the ribbon, dry as bone. Yet the words stared back at him, crimson against the page. That night, the local news flickered on his TV, breaking, man found dead in Riverside Park, throat slashed. No witnesses. Elliot froze, the phrase he'd typed echoing in his mind. A coincidence, surely. He shoved the typewriter under a pile of books and tried to sleep, but the clacking echoed in his dreams. The next day, restless, he pulled it out again. His fingers hovered, then typed. She screamed as the blade fell. The keys resisted, then gave way, the red ink blooming anew. That evening, the radio crackled. Woman murdered in her home on Elm Street, killed by a single cut. Elliot's stomach churned. He tore the paper out, burned it in the sink, and watched the ashes curl. But the typewriter sat there, silent, waiting. He couldn't stop. It was a compulsion now, a sick experiment. The child ran, but the shadow caught him. Red words. Red news, boy missing, blood found near the old mill. Each time, the typewriter knew. Each time, it wrote in that impossible scarlet hue. He tried to throw it out, but the garbage truck never came. He locked it in a closet, but the clacking woke him at night, paper somehow back in its jaws. Desperate, Elliot researched its origins. An ex-post from a local historian mentioned a typewriter owned by a recluse named Marjorie Hale, who vanished in 1929 after neighbors reported screams from her home. Her husband, a butcher, had died mysteriously the same year, bled out in their cellar. No one connected the dots. Elliot did. The machine wasn't just predicting murders, it was writing them into existence. He decided to test it one last time. Trembling, he typed. The man destroyed the typewriter and lived. The key stuck, then slammed down, the red ink pooling like a wound. He grabbed a hammer from his toolbox and swung. The metal cracked, keys flying, but the frame held. He hit it again and again until it was a mangled heap. Exhausted, he collapsed, the hammer slipping from his grip. The next morning, he woke to silence. No clacking. No news alerts. Relief washed over him until he saw the paper on his desk. It wasn't there before. Typed in that familiar red, the man thought he won, but the shadow grew. His reflection in the window flickered, and something moved behind him, a shape too tall, too thin, its edges wet with crimson. The last sound Elliot heard was a faint, rhythmic clack-clack-clack, though the typewriter lay in pieces across the room.